Mira had always loved hiking alone. The isolation brought her peace. But this time was different. She'd found a new trail deep in the woods, far from her usual paths. The entrance had no signs, just an overgrown archway of twisted branches. She had hesitated but then convinced herself it was worth exploring. The dense forest quickly swallowed the sunlight, leaving her surrounded by a suffocating canopy of leaves and shadows. About an hour in, she began to feel it, the sensation of being watched. She stopped and scanned the trees but saw nothing. The only sound was the crunch of leaves beneath her boots and the distant caw of a crow. Shrugging off the unease, she pressed on. The path narrowed, twisting between gnarled trees. Odd symbols carved into the bark caught her attention. They were crude and uneven, resembling eyes, spirals, and sharp lines. As she touched one of the carvings, a sharp sound echoed, a distant laugh, thin and dry, like leaves rustling against stone. She spun around. The forest was empty. Continuing on, she found a clearing with an abandoned campsite. The tents were torn, their poles snapped. A faint smell of decay lingered in the air. She found a journal, half buried under leaves and mud. The pages were damp, the handwriting smeared, but one phrase was still legible. "It mimics you." Mira's pulse quickened. She stuffed the journal in her bag and hurried back to the trail. But the path looked unfamiliar. Every tree seemed identical, and the symbols she had passed earlier were now gone. Panic set in as the woods grew darker. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, twisting as though they had minds of their own. "Hello," she called, hoping for a hiker or ranger to appear. Her voice echoed back, faint but distorted. Then, from somewhere deeper in the forest, she heard her own voice mimic her. "Hello?" Her breath caught. It wasn't an echo. It was delayed, wrong, like a recording played back at a slower speed. She turned and ran, branches clawing at her clothes. The forest seemed alive, closing in around her. The laughter returned, louder this time, coming from all directions. As she stumbled into another clearing, she froze. At the center was a large gnarled tree with roots that seemed to writhe in the dirt. Carved into its trunk was her name, written repeatedly in different handwriting. Beneath the tree lay a small pile of belongings, a water bottle, a scarf, a boot, things she recognized as her own, though she hadn't lost anything. A whisper brushed her ear. "Stay." She screamed and bolted, her only thought being to get out of the forest. Her legs burned, and her lungs felt like they would collapse. The mimicked voices grew louder, overlapping, echoing her screams, her pleas, her cries for help. Finally, she burst through the archway and into the fading daylight of the main road. She didn't stop running until she reached her car. Trembling, she locked the doors and sped away. But as she glanced in the rearview mirror, her blood ran cold. There, sitting in the back seat, was herself, or something that looked like her. Its face was twisted into a grotesque grin, eyes hollow and black. "Thanks for the ride," it whispered. The car was found abandoned on the roadside the next morning, its doors wide open. Mira was never seen again. The journal, left behind in the passenger seat, had one new entry. "It mimics you. And now, it's free."